The invitation was thick cardstock, embossed with gold lettering. Reynolds Industries Annual Gala, black tie required. My husband Trevor's company threw this event every year, and every year I dreaded it. Not because I didn't like parties, but because Trevor transformed at these things. The attentive husband I lived with became a networking machine who barely acknowledged my existence. "You're coming, right?" he asked that morning, not looking up from his laptop. "Of course. It's important to you." "Good. Wear something impressive. Harrison is bringing his new wife, and you know how these things are." I knew exactly how these things were. I'd be Trevor's accessory for photos, then spend 3 hours standing alone while he worked the room. But this year felt different. Something in me was shifting. Maybe it was turning 35. Maybe it was 10 years of being treated like a prop. Whatever it was, I wasn't willing to be invisible anymore. I bought a dress that was stunning. Emerald green, perfectly fitted, impossible to ignore. If Trevor was going to leave me hanging at this party, I'd make sure people noticed. If only he'd known what he was about to unleash. The gala was at the Grand Plaza Hotel, ballroom glittering with chandeliers and ice sculptures. I'd spent 2 hours getting ready. Hair, makeup, the perfect accessories. I looked good, really good. Trevor barely glanced at me when I came downstairs. "Ready?" "You didn't notice the dress." He looked up from his phone. "Looks fine. We need to leave in 5. Fine. 10 years of marriage, and I looked fine. We rode to the hotel in silence, Trevor reviewing notes on his phone about people he needed to talk to, deals he needed to close. I was already a ghost, and we hadn't even arrived. The ballroom was packed with Trevor's colleagues and their partners. The moment we walked in, his demeanor changed. Big smile, confident stride, hand on my lower back for exactly 3 seconds before someone called his name. "Trevor, great to see you." Harrison, Trevor's boss, approached with a woman half his age attached to his arm. "This is Melody, my wife." Trevor shook Harrison's hand enthusiastically. "Wonderful to meet you, Melody. This is my wife, Fallon." I smiled. Melody smiled. The men immediately started talking business. Then Trevor said the thing he always said. "Fallon, sweetheart, why don't you get us drinks? I'll catch up with you in a bit." And just like that, I was dismissed. I'd heard that line 100 times. "Get us drinks. Grab some appetizers. I'll catch up with you. Code 4, I'm done acknowledging your existence for the next 3 hours." I walked to the bar, seething. The bartender, a young woman with kind eyes, noticed my expression. "Rough night already? Does it show?" "Only to someone who's worked 1,000 of these events. What can I get you?" "Gin and tonic. Strong." She made it generously. "Husband ditched you for networking? Is it that obvious? Happens every event. Men bring their wives as props, then forget they exist. It's a pattern." I sipped my drink. She was right. This was a pattern, and I was tired of it. I looked around the ballroom. Other women stood in similar positions, alone by the bar, in corners, making awkward small talk with each other while their husbands worked the room. We were all accessories. Beautiful, expensive accessories that made our husbands look successful and stable, but not actual people, not partners. I made a decision right then. Tonight would be different. I wasn't going to stand in a corner waiting for Trevor to remember I existed. I was going to make this night memorable. For both of us. My opportunity came 20 minutes later. I'd been standing near a group discussing market trends when a distinguished man in his 60s approached. "You look like the only person here who's not pretending to enjoy themselves." I laughed. "That obvious?" "I'm Adrian Chen. I run Chen Technologies. And you are?" "Fallon Pierce. My husband works for Reynolds Industries." "Ah, the corporate spouse. The hardest job at these events. You understand it then." My late wife attended 40 years of these things. She used to say the spouses did all the emotional labor while getting none of the credit. His honesty was refreshing. Your wife was wise? She was. Which is why I make a point of actually talking to people at these events, not just networking targets. We talked for 20 minutes about everything except business, art, travel, books. Adrian was genuinely interested in my opinions, asking follow-up questions, laughing at my observations. It felt amazing to be seen as a person. Then I noticed Trevor watching from across the room. His expression was confused, slightly annoyed. Who was I talking to? Why was I laughing? I smiled at him and turned back to Adrian, continuing our conversation. Let Trevor wonder. Adrian introduced me to his colleague Victoria, who ran a nonprofit focused on arts education. Fallon was just telling me about her background in museum curation. You two should talk. I hadn't worked in museums in years, not since marrying Trevor. But Victoria's eyes lit up. Really? We're always looking for expertise. What was your focus? Contemporary art and community engagement. I specialized in making art accessible to underserved communities. We talked for another 30 minutes. Victoria was brilliant, passionate, and treated my past career like it still mattered. We're launching a new initiative in the spring. Would you be interested in consulting, even just a few hours a week? My heart raced. I'd love to. Can I give you my contact information? As I was exchanging numbers with Victoria, Trevor appeared at my elbow. Fallon, can I talk to you? His smile was tight. Of course. Victoria, it was wonderful meeting you. I followed Trevor to a quiet corner. His pleasant expression dropped immediately. What are you doing? Having conversations, meeting people. Isn't that the point of networking events? You're supposed to be supporting me, not off making your own connections. I've been here 2 hours, Trevor. You haven't spoken to me once except to ask me to get drinks. I'm working. You know these events are important for my career. And I'm not allowed to have conversations? Not with Adrian Chen. Do you know who he is? Yes, he's a nice man who actually treated me like a person. Trevor's jaw tightened. You're embarrassing me. His words hit like a slap. I'm embarrassing you by having normal conversations? You're supposed to be here as my wife, not as an independent agent networking on your own. What exactly is my role supposed to be, Trevor? Stand in a corner looking pretty until you need me for a photo? Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm asking what you expect from me at these events. He looked around, making sure no one was watching. I expect you to support me, to make me look good, not to monopolize important contacts for your own purposes. I wasn't monopolizing anyone. Adrian approached me. Because you were standing there looking available for conversation. The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. So I should look unavailable, unapproachable? Is that what you want? I want you to remember why we're here. To support your career while I disappear into the background? To be a team, Fallon. Like we always have been. But we weren't a team, not really. A team implied partnership, mutual support. What we had was Trevor pursuing his ambitions while I provided attractive backdrop. I'm going back to my conversation with Victoria, I said. Trevor, feel free to continue networking. Isn't that why we're here? I walked away before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. Standing up to Trevor publicly felt dangerous and necessary. I found Victoria near the dessert table. Sorry about that. My husband needed to speak with me. Everything okay? She looked concerned. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I am interested in that consulting opportunity. We exchanged emails and agreed to schedule a call the following week. Victoria was offering me something I hadn't had in a decade, professional identity beyond being Trevor's wife. After she left, Adrian found me again. Your husband didn't look pleased. He wasn't. Apparently I'm supposed to be seen and not heard at these things. That's unfortunate. You're far too interesting to be ornamental. Thank you, though my husband might disagree. Adrian studied me carefully. If you're interested in getting back into the arts world, I know people. Chen Technologies sponsors several museums and cultural programs. I could make introductions. Why would you do that? Because talent shouldn't be wasted, and because your husband is a fool if he doesn't see what he has. It was forward but not inappropriate. Just honest. I'd appreciate that, very much. We talked for another hour. Other people joined the conversation, a curator from the City Art Museum, a philanthropist funding arts education, a gallery owner. For the first time in years, I was in my element, discussing the things I'd studied and loved before marriage had consumed my identity. Trevor watched from a distance, his expression growing darker with each passing hour. By 10 RPM, I'd collected 6 business cards and had 3 potential consulting opportunities: Victoria's nonprofit work, Adrian's museum connections, and a gallery owner interested in my perspective on community engagement. The old Fallon was waking up, the one who'd had ambitions and expertise before becoming Trevor's accessory. The gala was winding down when Trevor finally approached. "We're leaving." Not a question, a command. I'm in the middle of a conversation. Now, Fallon. The people I'd been talking to exchanged uncomfortable glances. I smiled apologetically. "Excuse me. Apparently we need to go." In the car, Trevor was silent for 5 blocks. Then, "You made a spectacle of yourself tonight. By having professional conversations, by ignoring me and courting attention from my boss's competitors. Adrian Chen is not your competitor. He runs a completely different sector. He's influential and you were flirting with him." I turned to look at Trevor. I was not flirting. I was having an intelligent conversation, which apparently you can't distinguish from flirting because you've forgotten I'm capable of intelligent conversation. Don't twist this. You know what you were doing. What I was doing was existing as something other than your prop. That's what bothers you. We didn't speak the rest of the drive home. When we got there, Trevor went to his office and slammed the door. I went to the bedroom and sat in the dark, thinking about how my marriage had slowly suffocated who I used to be. I didn't sleep much. Around 2 a.m., I got up and went to my laptop. I pulled up my old resume from 10 years ago, back when I'd been an assistant curator at a mid-sized museum. The experience and skills were solid, just outdated. I spent 3 hours updating it, adding volunteer work I'd done over the years, community projects I'd contributed to, knowledge I'd maintained even without formal employment. By sunrise, I had a current resume and a cover letter template. When Trevor came down for breakfast, I was already dressed and working at the kitchen table. "What are you doing?" "Updating my resume. Victoria offered me consulting work and I want to be prepared." He poured coffee, his movements sharp. "You're seriously considering this?" "Yes. Why wouldn't I?" "Because you don't need to work. I make enough to support us. This isn't about money. It's about having purpose beyond being your wife." "What's wrong with being my wife?" "Nothing. But it shouldn't be my only identity." Trevor sat down, his expression softening slightly. "Fallon, I don't understand where this is coming from. We have a good life." "You have a good life. Career, ambitions, professional identity. What do I have?" "You have us, the house, freedom to do whatever you want. As long as whatever I want doesn't interfere with supporting your career, right?" He didn't answer. "Trevor, I'm not trying to undermine you. I'm trying to remember who I am beyond being your +1. This is about last night. Last night was a symptom. The real problem is that you don't see me as a partner. You see me as support staff." Trevor stood abruptly. "I'm late for work. We'll discuss this later." "There's nothing to discuss. I'm taking Victoria's consulting offer if she extends it formally." "Fallon, this isn't a negotiation, Trevor. I've spent 10 years centering your career. I'm allowed to have my own ambitions." He left without responding. I sat at the kitchen table, heart pounding, feeling scared and exhilarated. I'd just drawn a line. No more being invisible. No more shrinking to make Trevor comfortable. Victoria called that afternoon. "I spoke with our board. They're very interested in bringing you on as a consultant for our spring initiative. 10 hours a week to start, with potential to expand. Are you interested?" "Absolutely." "Wonderful. Can you come by our office this week to discuss specifics?" "I'd love to." After hanging up, I sat staring at my phone. This was real. I was stepping back into professional life. Not as Trevor's wife, but as Fallon Pierce, arts education consultant. When Trevor came home that evening, I told him. He looked tired, defeated. "So you've already decided?" "I have, without discussing it with me." "Trevor, if you'd wanted to be part of the decision, you should have treated me like a partner whose opinions mattered. But you don't, so I'm making decisions for myself now." He was quiet for a long moment. "Are you leaving me?" The question surprised me. "I don't know. That depends on whether you can accept that I'm a person with my own goals, not just an extension of you." The consulting work started 2 weeks later. Victoria's organization, Arts Connect, was developing programs to bring museum experiences to underserved schools. My role was to design curriculum and train facilitators. It was challenging, meaningful work. I loved it. Trevor and I existed in a strange limbo. We were civil but distant. He worked late most nights. I threw myself into the consulting project. We barely talked beyond logistics. 3 weeks into my new role, Adrian Chen called. "Fallon, I'm on the board of the Metropolitan Arts Museum. Our director mentioned they're looking for a part-time community engagement coordinator. I thought of you." That would be incredible." "Would you be interested? I could set up an interview." "Yes. Absolutely yes." The interview was scheduled for the following week. I didn't tell Trevor. He'd made it clear he didn't support my professional ambitions, so he didn't get to be part of them. The night before the interview, Trevor noticed me reviewing notes at the kitchen table. "What's this?" "Interview prep. I have a meeting tomorrow." "For what?" "A position at the Metropolitan Arts Museum, Community Engagement Coordinator." He looked stunned. "When did this happen?" "Adrian Chen connected me. It's part-time, 20 hours a week, perfect for building back into the field." "You're taking a job without discussing it with me first?" "I'm interviewing for a job. If they offer it, yes, I'll take it." Again, not a negotiation. Trevor's face hardened. "So that's how it is now? You just make unilateral decisions about our life?" "Our life?" "Trevor, you've been making unilateral decisions about our life for 10 years. Where we live, where we vacation, what social events we attend. I've supported every single decision. Now I'm making one for myself." "That's different." "How?" He couldn't answer. Because there was no good answer. His decisions counted, mine didn't. That was the unspoken rule of our marriage. The interview went extraordinarily well. The museum director, Pauline, was impressed with my background and enthusiastic about my community engagement ideas. "We need someone who understands both the academic side and the practical application of making art accessible. You seem perfect for this role." "Thank you. This is exactly the kind of work I'm passionate about." "When could you start?" "Immediately. I have consulting work that's flexible, and I can coordinate schedules." 3 days later, they offered me the position. 20 hours a week, decent pay, and most importantly, meaningful work in my field. I accepted immediately. When I told Trevor, he looked defeated. "So, you really did it?" "Yes." "And you didn't need my input or approval?" "No, Trevor, I didn't." "What happened to us, Fallon?" I sat down across from him. "We stopped being a partnership. You became the star and I became the audience. I'm not doing that anymore. I never asked you to disappear. You didn't ask. You just stopped noticing when I did. He looked away. I thought you were happy, supporting my career, being part of this life we built. You thought I was happy because you never asked. You never noticed that I stopped talking about art or museums or my own interests. You never wondered why I had no professional connections or current skills. I thought you chose to focus on our marriage. I chose to sacrifice my identity for yours. There's a difference. We sat in heavy silence. Finally, Trevor said, I don't know how to fix this. I'm not sure you can, I said honestly. Not if you can't see me as an equal. I do see you as an equal. No, you don't. You see me as a support system. Someone whose job is to make you look good and ask for nothing in return. He stood up, agitated. That's not fair. I've provided a good life for us. Financial security, a beautiful home. Things, Trevor, you've provided things, but you haven't provided partnership. What do you want from me? I want you to be proud when I succeed, not threatened. I want you to ask about my day like I ask about yours. I want to be visible in our marriage, not just at galas when you need a prop. His face crumpled. Is it too late? Can we fix this? I don't know. That depends on whether you're willing to fundamentally change how you see me and our relationship. I'll try. Trying isn't enough. You either commit to seeing me as a partner, or we end this. I'd never given him an ultimatum before. The power in it was terrifying and necessary. Trevor looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in years. I don't want to lose you. Then don't make me disappear. Over the next month, things shifted slowly. Trevor started asking about my work at the museum. Not performatively, but with genuine interest. He attended an event where I was presenting, sitting in the audience like a supportive partner. He even apologized to Adrian Chen for his behavior at the gala, admitting he'd been threatened by my professional connections. My work at the museum flourished. I developed partnerships with 12 schools, bringing art experiences to over 300 students in the first quarter. Pauline was impressed enough to discuss expanding my role. You're exactly what this institution needed, she said during a review meeting. Fresh perspective, community connections, genuine passion. Have you thought about moving to full-time? I have, actually. I'm loving this work. Good. Let's make it official. I'd like to offer you a full-time position as Director of Community Engagement. It's a significant step up with management responsibilities and budget authority. Director. A real title, real authority, real career. I'd be honored. When I told Trevor that night, his response surprised me. That's incredible, Fallon. Seriously, I'm proud of you. You mean that? I do. I've been watching you these past few months. You're alive in a way you haven't been in years. I didn't realize how much I dimmed your light. It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in a decade. Thank you for saying that. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. And I'm sorry about the gala, about all those years of making you invisible. I'm sorry I let myself disappear. You shouldn't have had to fight to be seen. That's on me. We weren't fixed. Years of dysfunction don't heal in a few months, but we were trying, genuinely trying, to rebuild as equals. The real test came at the next Reynolds Industries gala. Trevor and I arrived together, and immediately I braced for the familiar pattern. But this time, Trevor kept his hand on my back not to dismiss me, but to keep me close. There's someone I want you to meet, he said, leading me toward a group of executives. This is my wife, Fallon. She's the Director of Community Engagement at the Metropolitan Arts Museum. Not this is my wife as an afterthought, but introducing me by title and accomplishment first. The executives were impressed. One woman, a VP I recognized from last year, said, I heard about your school partnership program. My daughter's school is part of it. She hasn't stopped talking about the museum visit. That's wonderful. Community access to art is so important. We talked for 20 minutes, Trevor standing supportively beside me but not dominating the conversation. When someone asked him a question about his work, he answered briefly, then redirected, "But Fallon's program is really the innovative work. She's impacting hundreds of students." I caught his eye. He smiled, genuinely proud. Later, Adrian Chen approached us. "Fallon, Trevor, good to see you both." Trevor extended his hand. "Adrian, thank you again for connecting Fallon with Pauline. That introduction changed her career trajectory." "She did the work herself. I just opened a door." "Still, I appreciate it, and I apologize again for my behavior last year. I was insecure and territorial." Adrian waved it off. "Water under the bridge. I'm just glad Fallon's back in the field where she belongs." The three of us talked for a while about art funding and community programs. Trevor contributed intelligently, but let me lead the conversation. This was my area of expertise, and he respected that. Around 10 p.m., Trevor asked, "Ready to head out, or do you want to stay longer?" Not a command, a question. "Let's give it another 30 minutes. I want to catch up with Victoria before we leave." "Perfect. I'll grab us drinks." He returned with my favorite cocktail and his scotch. We stood together, watching the party, actually together instead of me watching him network while I stood alone. "This is different," I said. "Better?" "Much better. I'm learning. Slowly, but I'm learning." Victoria found us near the end of the night. "Fallon, I heard about your promotion. Director, that's fantastic." "Thank you. And your program is expanding too, I heard?" We talked about potential collaboration between Arts Connect and the museum's community programs. Trevor listened, occasionally asking relevant questions, but mostly letting us discuss our work. When Victoria left, he said, "You're really good at this. Building partnerships, seeing connections other people miss." "I always was. You just never noticed." "I notice now." On the drive home, Trevor took my hand. I was thinking, my company's planning a charity auction in the spring. Would your museum be interested in partnering? We could feature some community art programs, raise awareness and funding. That's a great idea. I want to support your work the way you've supported mine all these years. It wasn't perfect. We still had work to do on communication and mutual respect, but it was progress. By spring, our marriage had transformed into something closer to partnership. Trevor actively promoted my museum work in his professional circles. I brought him to gallery openings and art events. We occupied each other's worlds instead of existing in parallel. The charity auction Trevor had proposed turned into a major event. Arts Connect and the Metropolitan Arts Museum were featured partners, with student artwork displayed and sold to benefit both organizations. I helped organize, Trevor handled corporate sponsorships, and together we raised over $200,000. At the auction, Pauline pulled me aside. "This event, your partnership programs, the school expansions, you've exceeded every expectation. The board wants to create a new position, Vice President of Community Impact. I'd like you to take it." Vice President, actual executive leadership. "Pauline, I don't know what to say." "Say yes. You've earned this." When I told Trevor later, he lifted me off the ground in a hug. "VP, Fallon, that's incredible. It's a lot of responsibility. You can handle it. You're brilliant at this work." His pride was genuine, uncomplicated by ego or competition. This was what partnership felt like. Over dinner, he asked detailed questions about the new role, the reporting structure, the team I'd manage, the strategic priorities. "You're going to need business cards," he said, "and a proper office. What can I do to help?" "Just keep being proud of me. Always." Looking at my husband across the table, I saw someone different than the man who dismissed me at that gala months ago. Or maybe I was different. Maybe I'd stopped accepting invisibility and demanded to be seen. The VP role started in June. I had a team of 6, a real budget and strategic authority over all community programs. The work was challenging and deeply fulfilling. 3 months into the position, I was invited to speak at a national museum conference about innovative community engagement strategies. It was a huge honor, the kind of recognition that built careers. I told Trevor over dinner, "That's incredible. Where's the conference?" "Chicago, 3 days in September." "I'm coming with you." "What?" "Trevor, you don't need to." "I want to. I've missed too many of your moments. I'd like to be there for this one if you'll let me." His sincerity was touching. "I'd like that." In Chicago, Trevor sat in the front row during my presentation. I spoke about breaking down barriers between museums and communities, about making art accessible rather than exclusive, about measuring impact beyond attendance numbers. The response was enthusiastic. During the Q&A, someone asked, "What inspired your approach to community engagement?" I looked at Trevor before answering. I spent years feeling invisible, like my contributions didn't matter. That experience taught me that everyone deserves to be seen and valued. Our programs are built on that principle. Every person, regardless of background, has the right to access and contribute to cultural experiences. After the presentation, multiple museums approached me about consulting or speaking opportunities. Trevor stood proudly beside me, handling the business cards I collected, genuinely excited about my success. That night at dinner, he said, "You were amazing today. Watching you up there, confident and knowledgeable, I realized how much of you I'd missed over the years. You're seeing me now. That's what matters." By fall, I'd been featured in 2 industry publications discussing innovative museum practices. The Metropolitan Arts Museum's community programs were being recognized nationally. Pauline told me the board was already discussing future promotions. "You're on track for senior leadership, Fallon. Director of Museum Operations within 3 years if you maintain this trajectory." My career had gone from non-existent to thriving in less than a year, all because I'd refused to stay invisible. Trevor and I found a rhythm that worked. He still had demanding career obligations, but he made space for mine. We attended each other's professional events. We celebrated each other's wins. We'd become actual partners. One evening, we were reviewing our calendars for the upcoming month. Trevor had a major client presentation. I had a board meeting and 2 school program launches. "We're both busy," he observed. "Is that okay? Is this balance working?" "It's working. We're both pursuing our goals while supporting each other. That's what I always wanted." I'm sorry it took me so long to understand. We both had to learn. Me learning to demand respect, you learning to give it. He reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm proud of who you've become. Or maybe who you always were, and I just wasn't paying attention." Both, maybe. We'd come a long way from that gala where he'd left me standing alone, dismissed and invisible. The journey had almost cost us our marriage, but it had also forced us to rebuild something stronger and more honest. The annual Reynolds Industries Gala rolled around again, 1 year since the night that changed everything. This time, getting ready felt different. I wasn't armoring myself for an evening of invisibility. I was preparing for a professional event where I had my own connections and credibility. Trevor came into the bedroom while I was doing my makeup. "You look beautiful." "Thank you. I mean it." "And Fallon?" "Thank you." For what? For not giving up on us, for demanding better. I would have lost you if you hadn't forced me to see what I was doing. We would have lost each other. At the gala, everything was different. Trevor introduced me immediately to colleagues. "This is my wife, Fallon Pierce. She's VP of Community Impact at the Metropolitan Arts Museum." People remembered me from last year. "Oh, you're the one who started that school partnership program. My nephew participated. Life-changing experience." Adrian Chen approached with a warm smile. Fallon, Trevor, good to see you both thriving. Thanks to you, I said. You opened the door that brought me back to this field. You walked through it. That was all you. We talked easily, the three of us, about art initiatives and corporate sponsorships. Trevor was engaged, but not dominating. He'd learned to share space. Throughout the evening, people sought me out. Museum board members, nonprofit leaders, corporate sponsors. I was no longer Trevor's invisible accessory. I was Fallon Pierce, professional in my own right. Around midnight, as the event was winding down, Trevor and I found a quiet corner. What a difference a year makes, he said. Everything's different. Better? Immeasurably better. Last year, I was miserable and didn't even fully realize it. Tonight, I'm here as myself, not as your appendage. I'm sorry I ever made you feel like an appendage. I'm sorry I accepted it for so long. He pulled me closer. Dance with me? We'd been married 11 years and had never danced together at these galas. I was always too busy being dismissed to make it onto the dance floor. But tonight, we danced. Just the two of us, in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by Trevor's colleagues who could all see that he wasn't just a successful executive. He was a husband who valued his wife. I love you, he said as we swayed to the music. Not the version of you I tried to keep small. The real you, ambitious and brilliant and accomplished. I love you too, the version that can handle being married to someone with their own career and goals. It's better this way. Harder sometimes, but better. Much better. As the song ended, Pauline appeared at my elbow. Sorry to interrupt, but Fallon, there's someone I want you to meet. She's on the National Endowment for the Arts Board, interested in our community model. I looked at Trevor. He smiled. Go, I'll be here when you're done. Not dismissed, not left hanging, just supported. I spent the next 30 minutes in a fascinating conversation about scaling community arts programs nationally. Trevor watched from across the room, proud and secure. 22. When we finally left the gala around 1 a.m., we were both energized rather than drained. That was fun, I said in the car. Actually fun? It was. I liked watching you work the room, making connections, impressing people. Last year, you would have hated that. Last year, I was insecure and controlling. I've grown. We both have. At home, we sat on the back patio with wine, decompressing from the evening. Do you remember what you said last year? Trevor asked, after that first gala when we fought. I said a lot of things. You said I either had to see you as a partner or we'd end things. That terrified me. It terrified me too. I'd never given you an ultimatum before. It was what I needed. A wake-up call that I was about to lose something irreplaceable. I leaned against him. I'm glad you heard it, and I'm glad you changed. Still changing, every day, learning to be the partner you deserve. We'd rebuilt our marriage from the foundation up. It wasn't the same relationship we'd had before. It was better, more honest, more equitable. Sometimes destruction is necessary for reconstruction. That gala, where Trevor left me hanging and I decided to make myself unforgettable, had demolished our dysfunctional patterns. What we'd built in its place was stronger because it was built on mutual respect instead of unexamined assumptions. The following year brought more growth. My community programs expanded to 15 schools and 3 community centers. We launched an artist-in-residence program for emerging local artists. The museum's community engagement was being studied as a model by institutions nationwide. Trevor's career continued thriving too. He made partner at Reynolds Industries and led their largest acquisition. But now, when he celebrated victories, he always acknowledged me. Couldn't have done this without Fallon's support and partnership. We attended professional events together, both of us networking and building connections. We'd become a team in the truest sense. In spring, I was invited to testify before a congressional committee about arts funding and community access. It was the pinnacle of professional recognition in my field. Trevor took the day off work to attend. Sitting in the hearing room, watching him watch me address congressional representatives about work that mattered deeply to me, I felt complete. This was partnership. Both of us pursuing excellence, both of us supporting each other, both of us visible and valued. After the testimony, as we walked out of the Capitol building, Trevor said, "I can't believe I almost lost you." But you didn't. Because you fought for yourself, for us. You refused to stay invisible. And you chose to really see me. We'd done the hard work, the uncomfortable conversations, the identity reconstruction, the deliberate practice of mutual respect. It had been exhausting and painful and absolutely worth it. By summer, I was being recruited by larger museums in major cities, positions with bigger budgets and broader scope. I seriously considered a few offers. Trevor's response surprised me. "If one of these opportunities is right for you, we'll figure it out. We could relocate, or we could do distance for a while. Your career matters as much as mine." "You mean that?" "Completely. I'm not letting my job dictate your opportunities anymore." Ultimately, I stayed at the Metropolitan. They countered with an expanded role and resources to scale our programs regionally. But knowing Trevor would support a move if I wanted it, that meant everything. In August, we celebrated my 1-year anniversary as VP. The museum threw a small reception, acknowledging the programs I'd built and the national recognition I'd brought. Trevor attended, of course. He'd become a fixture at my professional events, just as I'd always been at his. During the reception, Pauline gave a speech. "Fallon has transformed how this institution engages with our community. She's proven that museums can be democratic spaces, accessible to everyone regardless of background. Her vision and leadership have been remarkable." The room applauded. Trevor's smile was proud and genuine. After Pauline's speech, Adrienne Chen approached us. "You two have come a long way since that gala where Fallon and I met." "We have," Trevor agreed. "Best thing that ever happened to us, actually. That night forced conversations we should have had years earlier." "Sometimes crisis creates opportunity for growth," Adrienne said. "You both chose growth. That's admirable." Looking around at my colleagues, my programs, my career, I felt deep gratitude. Not for the crisis itself, but for finding the courage to demand better, for refusing to stay invisible. That evening, Trevor and I went to our favorite restaurant to celebrate. "1 year as VP," he said, raising his glass, "and 1 year of our marriage actually being a partnership." We clinked glasses. To growth, to visibility, to fighting for what we deserve. I'll drink to that. After dinner, walking home through the warm summer evening, Trevor said, "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "That night at the gala, when you were talking to Adrienne and Victoria, when I saw you animated and engaged in a way you hadn't been with me in years, I felt 2 things." "What?" "First, jealousy. That others got to see that version of you while I'd let it disappear. And second, recognition. I'd been so focused on my own ambitions that I'd erased yours. I let myself be erased too. But you stopped letting it happen. You drew a line. You demanded respect. That took courage I'm not sure I would have had. You found your own courage, admitting you were wrong, actively changing, celebrating my success even when it meant adjusting your identity as the primary breadwinner and achiever. We reached our house and sat on the front steps, watching the neighborhood settle into evening. "If I could go back," Trevor said, "I'd do everything differently from the beginning." "If you'd done everything differently, we might not have ended up here. Sometimes the painful path teaches lessons the easy path can't. Still, I'm sorry for the years I made you feel invisible. And I'm grateful for the years we've built since then." Looking at my husband, I saw someone who genuinely changed, Not perfectly, not completely, but substantially. He'd learned to see me, and I'd learned to demand visibility. That gala, where he'd left me hanging and I'd decided to make the night unforgettable, had been the catalyst for everything. The humiliation, the confrontation, the reconstruction of our entire relationship. If only he'd known what he was starting when he dismissed me that night. If only he'd realized that leaving me hanging would force me to stand on my own, to remember my strength, to demand the partnership I deserved. But maybe he needed to learn the hard way. Maybe we both did. Sometimes the unforgettable nights aren't the celebrated ones. They're the nights that break you open and force you to rebuild differently, stronger, more honestly. That gala had been my breaking point, and my breakthrough. The night I stopped being Trevor's invisible accessory and became Fallon Pierce again, and that was worth every uncomfortable moment that followed.